welcome to Community Focus. Harold Harris, you're a candidate for mayor here in the city of Toledo, and you're running as an independent.
So independent, non-committed.
Talk to me and talk to the viewers about what your platform is and how it got you to this point in running for mayor. How did you make the decision to run for mayor?
Okay. The decision was made, I don't know, it seems like over a 3-year span. I've always been, promoting register to vote, social issues, voting issues, issue 9, charter, issue 21, and then I've worked on 3 different campaigns. And so I kind of had a taste of politics behind the scenes. I never really ran on a ballot. But what had happened is when I went out to campaign for issues or politicians, people said, why don't you run? Why don't you put your name on the sign? We think you make a good politician. So I just kind of, didn't pay no attention to it. And then when we had the charter, issue 9 last November, I think that was my breaking point. Not only was that my breaking point, I didn't like the charter. I was like the standard bearer of the vote no. I pushed that issue. I think everybody in the city knew I was behind it because I probably was the only one that was actually campaigning against it. It was almost like I was on the ballot.
And people often see you around town with your signs as well.
All the time. And it could be in the summer, it could be in November and October, because usually when we have elections, it's around October, November.
Right.
They would see me constantly at the early vote center. And when I went to the early vote, most cases, if I was pushing an issue, I'd be there for the whole month. Like if early vote started in October, I'd stay there the whole month. I'd get up every day, I'd go out there. If they open at 7:30 or 7, I'd be there till the closing. And I'd be there the last day of early vote, and then I'd flip over to the precinct. So, because most of the time, if I campaign against something, that issue usually was something that meant something to me. And in most cases, it was a no vote. Very rarely I would campaign for a yes vote. And I don't think matter of fact, I don't think I've never, ever campaigned for a yes vote. Then sometimes if there's bad candidates on the ballot, I'm going to go out and I'm going to campaign against that candidate. So I just thought, well, hey, after people kept coming to me and over, like say, 3-year period, probably at least 300 people came to me and said, why don't you run for mayor? So I gave it a lot of thought last November after we voted for the president. And so after Thanksgiving and Christmas and the holidays went by, the ball dropped for New Year's. I just said, you know what, maybe I should. I mean, why not? So, I've already got the skills to campaign because I've already been on the street. I've already used all the different tools that politicians use, the media, the paper, everything, So the only difference was put my name on the ballot.
And obviously you have definitely spoke about a lot of different issues. I mean, I think the first time I recall seeing you with your sign was in 2020. Mm-hmm. And so what would you say your platform is in terms of running for mayor?
Well, my main platform is the most important thing. I've got a couple things, maybe 3, 4, 5 different things. But the most pressing thing, if I was to become mayor, would be gun violence, homicides, shootings, murder in this city. I want to bring those numbers down. Our current mayor, he keeps saying we don't have a problem. Crime is down. The numbers are down. I'm not buying it. I think if you talk to the people that live in some of these neighborhoods, like the North End, the South End, the East Side, the South Toledo, those people are hearing gunfire every day, day and night. So, and not only that, all the victims that we have that's been shot down in this city, if you told the parents of their sons and their daughters that's been shot down in this city that we don't have a problem, that gun violence is down, they're not buying it either. Something needs to be done about all these shootings with our young people. And to me, it's a spiral. It continues and it continues and it continues. It's almost a daily thing. You turn on the news, it's usually, in the mornings, at lunchtime. I know some days I've seen 3 shootings a day in this city at different times, like either 2 at night, 1 at lunchtime, during the day from 11 to 1, and then 1 in the evening. So my thing is, life is precious. We can always fix the roads and the streets and buildings and structures, but if you lose your son or your daughter, you can't bring them back. So we really, really, really need to do something to save these young people, to get them out of this spiral of gun violence and shootings and killings and murders. So that's probably the first step I take is going to be to combat gun violence. And then after that, I want to bring back Block Watch to the community, because I think Block Watch was a connection that people had to our police officers, to the police. And if there was gangs and, say, drug dealers in your neighborhood, my thought on it is, with gangs and drug dealers, they bring crime into the neighborhoods. They sponsor crime. They live on crime. That's their whole background. I mean, they wake up every day and they just in a crime zone, you know what I'm saying? And one thing about these young kids, and I always thought about it, was if I went to a gun store, I can walk in, show my ID, driver's license, do all the paperwork, and I can buy a weapon. When you got a 13, 14, 15, 16 year old, 17-year-old person that's carrying a 9mm, where do they buy it from? They buy it on the black market, off a gang member or drug dealer. So if you eradicate these gang members and drug dealers out of the neighborhoods, these young kids won't have access to guns.
Well, and obviously you're also approaching this issue from a non-traditional sense, because as I'm aware, your biography, you were an Air Force veteran, and
right.
Obviously you're a resident of Toledo.
Right.
And so coming in as an outsider, one would say, how would you approach that and build those connections to accomplish those goals?
Oh, it's easy. It's easy. I just laid it out to you. Eradicate the gangs, eradicate the drug dealers. That is basically the whole situation here. When you have gangs and drug dealers operating and all their whole life is about crime, and they thrive on crime, selling drugs on the black market, selling guns on the black market, you cut that source off and you don't have the weapons flowing in these neighborhoods.
And so that's where you would start if you were elected.
Definitely. And another thing I'm going to do is, a lot of times with the police now, on this current administration, they have these things where they'll go into the North End for 2 weeks. They'll gather a bunch of guns. They may gather, $30,000 worth of drugs. They may pick up 3 or 4 drug dealers in those neighborhoods, but you're not taking down the structure. Drug dealers and gangs are just like terrorists. They have a structure. And if you notice, when we take out a terrorist, like Osama bin Laden, there's 15 other terrorists ready to step up the next day. The operation keeps going. You have to take down the whole structure. You have to eradicate it. So as long as you take out 3 or 4 people in a drug operation, within a week's time, they're back on the street and they're tossing drugs around. It's the same with gang members. There's not just 3 or 4 gang members. You may have 30, 40 people that's involved in a gang. You arrest 3 of them, and the rest of the gangs, they just pick up where that guy left off. You know what I'm saying? So you need to eradicate them out of the neighborhoods and get them out. My message to gang members and drug dealers: if you want to sell drugs, if you want to be a gang member, don't live in Toledo, because we're going to be coming knocking on your door. I'm not putting up with it. I'm not going to have it, because that is the sole problem why we have these issues in our neighborhoods. And my thing is, with the young people, my direction to them would be, stay in school. Either if you want to go to college or you want to take up a trade. But if you pick up crime, if you pick up drugs, you're going to end up in jail. And your whole life is going to be screwed up. And I really don't want to have to throw these young people in jail. But I tell you what, if you're breaking the law and you decide to take that course, then that's just how it's going to be. Because my thing is, I'm not going to let up. And another thing I'm going to do is, instead of these police officers just going into a neighborhood and staying for a couple of weeks and then moving on, no. They're going to be embedded in these neighborhoods. They're going to stay in those neighborhoods until the problem is solved. They're not going to be there for 2 or 3 weeks. And when the drug dealers and the gang members say, oh, okay, they're coming out here and they're just going to hang around for 2 weeks, because they know that, they sense that, it's well known. You know what I'm saying? So once they leave after 2 or 3 weeks, it's just things back to usual. You know what I'm saying? They'll lay low for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they come back out and they're doing business as usual. But that's not going to be the case, because where these drug dealers are, where these gangs are, I'm going to keep these officers embedded in those neighborhoods.
It's clear that that's the fundamental issue behind your campaign, but definitely the city faces other ones, some economic, and obviously economics ties into this as well. How would you approach the city's economic development situation? Because the city, while progress has been made on its own, is still seeing its population decline. And so is that going to be something that you're going to be willing to tackle if elected?
Yeah, definitely. But the reason why you have a decline, and I'm going to tell you why. If you look at Savannah, Rossford, Perrysburg, Oregon, Maumee, Findlay, Fremont, those cities are prospering. You got Fortune 500 companies moving to those cities. And you know why? Because my thing, if I look at myself as a Fortune 500 CEO, if I'm going to go to a city to decide to build like a big company or factory or set up my headquarters, you're going to go there and visit that city. And when you go into the east side, I don't know if you ever went over the Martin Luther King Bridge. It looks like a war zone. It looks like a third world country. It's blighted. It's garbage. It's trash. Would I want to move my company over there off of Miami Street? No. Would I want to move my company over there off of the North End, Cherry, and Stickney? No. Because when I move my company there, I'm going to have people coming from all over the world to visit me at my headquarters. Do I want them driving through all of that? No. That's why I would move my company to Findlay, Fremont, Maumee, Savannah. Because if you go into those cities, you see how pristine those cities look. Have you been into Fremont, Findlay, Maumee, Perrysburg, Rossford? It's beautiful. Ain't no doubt about it. You don't see the trash. You don't see the blight. But you got Fortune 500 companies moving into those cities because they're pristine. They're beautiful. And if I was a Fortune 500 company, I'd do that too. Because I'm going to have people coming to visit me, to talk to me, have conferences. And I'm sure I wouldn't want them driving through all of that mess that we got. So that needs to be cleaned up. You know, we need to take care of our house. Just like when you do spring cleaning and you have people come visit, you just clean your house, right? Basic. You want it to look good, right? And my thing would be when you have people moving out of the city, it's because when you have these neighborhoods that look run down, that's blighted, my thing would be if you're looking for a house and you want to send your kids to school, you got 2 or 3 kids, you drive into that neighborhood and you got a wife and 3 kids, they're more than likely not going to buy that house in that neighborhood. They're going to go somewhere else where it's nicer, where the schools are nice, the community is nice, it's nice and clean. You know, we basically got to start from scratch. Just like all those blighted and boarded up houses that we got. I think the city said there's like, I think just on the east side alone, there's over 150. Now, if you take the north end and the south end and put that all together, you might be looking at 500 blighted, boarded up homes.
And it's definitely an effort that the city has attempted throughout the years, but one of the challenges is finding the money to do it. And so what would you do in terms of actually getting everyone at the table? Because obviously it costs money in order to do that. And so
you mean to get rid of those blighted homes?
To get rid of those blighted homes. So how would you tackle that?
Well, you know, one thing is, I'm not in the city right now, but we all know federal government, state government, local government, city government, there's a lot of waste going on. And I want to look at that. There's money there, but how is it being spent? You know what I'm saying?
So you're kind of looking at grants.
No, I'm not even looking at grants. I'm looking at waste and fraud. You know what I'm saying? Because you may have positions that's been created that, hey, you know what? We got 3 people doing the same job. Let's look at this. You know what I'm saying? There may be money going out that's being spent on things that's not even necessary. You know, that's not a need. You know, I want to spend money where there's a need. So, you know, my thing is, I'm not in that position right now, but I tell you what, when I get into office, I'm going to look at everything. Not just crime, not just blight, but the money flow. Where is the money going? What jobs do we have that maybe 2 or 3 people may be doing the same thing? Maybe we can change that. Instead of having 3 people, 1 person. You know what I'm saying? When you start cutting back on that, you get money. You say, oh man, we got another 100,000 here, another 100,000 there, $1 million there. You know, it may be something else that I could look at too. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is with government, you always have waste all the time. You know, there's no doubt about it. And you can look at the federal government, the state government, and even your local, the city and county. You know, there's a lot of money flowing from grants and tax money and everything else. But how's it being spent?
You would have to work with the city, you'd have to work with the county. And so in terms of that, how would you build those relationships where obviously things can be accomplished and things can get done, but at the same time, there is of course that pushback when need be. How would your relationship be?
Well, you know what, I'm a talker. And I don't mind sitting down with people, and if I have a vision, I don't mind sitting down and explaining it to people. Hopefully they will see things like I see it. Maybe sometimes they won't, and they may disagree, but those are the challenges. If I have 20 things on my plate and I get 5 out of 20, I succeeded. You're not always going to get everything, but I'm definitely going to throw it out there. And if I don't get it all, then that's okay. But that don't mean I'm not going to keep pushing it. You know what I'm saying? If I think it's that important to me, I will come back and fight another day and push it again. But I figure if I get 5 out of 20, I'm making progress. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just going to keep chipping away. I'm not going to give up, because I don't give up on stuff. And, you know, we can sit down and have meetings, and we can go back and have more meetings, and we can have more meetings. But if I think it's something that's going to turn this city around, then I'm gonna keep working on it.
Was there any other issue for you that would be most important?
Well, it's a few things. Block watch. It was ended 10 or 9 years ago by the current mayor. And my mom, she was a block watch captain. And there's a lot of people in this city, when I went out to do petitions and the voters signed my petitions, they asked about block watch. They said, why don't we bring block watch back? So I'm going to try to do that. Because my thing is, block watch was a connection to the city, to our police officers, to city services, to the streets and the roads. They went to those meetings. They showed up at those meetings. The people had a direct connection. And another thing I want to do is take a hard look at, I want to call it Engage Toledo. Everybody says it's broke. What am I going to do about Engage Toledo? You call Engage Toledo, it's almost like you get a dial tone. Nobody's listening. Nobody's responding. There's some kind of bad connection there, because you call that number to get a service request number, and they're supposed to respond and come out, check the problem, fix the problem. I want to find out, where is the connection broke? It's not the girl on the phone that takes your information. I know that. Once it's passed to these departments, either streets and roads or sewer or whatever it is, forestry, something's going on where they're not responding. So we need to look at that, and I want to fix it, because you got a lot of frustrated citizens out there that want it fixed. And another thing I want to do is the sidewalks in our neighborhoods. We got sidewalks that's 6 to 8 inches high. Some of them, the sidewalks are crumbled so bad they're not even there anymore. And I think you remember the one little girl that was walking down the street last summer that was arrested by the police because she said, I can't walk on the sidewalk. There is no sidewalk. And some of those sidewalks, they have crumbled so bad, they turn into dirt. Now they're grown up, they got grass just growing all over them. And that's within our neighborhoods. And another thing I want to do is forestry. We got a lot of dead trees in this city. And we all know when we have storms in the spring and the summer, those trees come down. And sometimes when they come down, they fall on people's cars and they fall on people's houses. But the city says, you got insurance. You know what I'm saying? Let your insurance pay for it. But when you got a hole in your house and you're looking up top to the roof, and you got rain pouring in and you can see the sunshine, you know, why should you have to go through all that when all we have to do is chop that tree down? So we need to be more, you know, preventive with these trees, and somehow get the forestry department to get into these neighborhoods. My main focus is going to be crime, homicides, murder, and bringing government back to these people in these neighborhoods that need it. You got a lot of neighborhoods that's not being taken care of. Then after we get those things taken care of, then I'll start looking at bringing jobs in. I'll start looking at what we can do to maybe make the city, you know, maybe some advances or something like that into the city, but in companies and stuff like that. But my focus is on the people. That's where it's at. Not giving tax incentive to big corporations. I'm not into that. My focus is on taking care of those people first. That's my first thing. All their needs, because they've been neglected for the last 8 years. And prior to that, I'm just not going to lay it all on Wade. Prior to that, all the previous mayors have had different focuses other than those people that put them into office. And it's shameful, because that's how they got there, as those people in those neighborhoods that's right now that's crying out, they're saying, when are you going to come take care of us? And that's what I want to do. They're my priority, the people.
Well, Harold Harris, thanks for coming on Community Focus to discuss your platform. I appreciate it.
That's it.